Yeah, I mean, as I sort of briefly mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, over the past few years, we've seen, some pretty significant events from COVID, Brexit, budgets that can cause significant swings to the currency market. Between announcing a tour, agreeing a budget, and actually when you get the settlement following the shows. So there are mechanisms that you can utilise to mitigate that risk. Things like forward contracts. I think as Lisa and Martin said, the advantage for us and for anyone working in our space is always to try and engage with the client as early as possible, to understand exactly what that tour looks like, where their exposure is. The exposure every artist is exposed to multiple currencies, typically on a tour, whether that's income, whether that's costs for production, crew, obviously travelling all around with that artist, and I think that's where we work really closely with a lot of the business managers, accountants, managers, to try and engage as early on in that process as we can, to at least give the client options. So there are mechanisms, things like hedging, forward contracts that you can take out, which effectively allows you to lock in the rate today for settlement in the future. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons to that mechanism, in the sense that you are locking in. So if you take a rate today at, let's say, 130 on sterling dollar, by the time you get the dollars paid to you, that rate could have gone one or two ways. So you can either be out of pocket, or you could be significantly in the money. So that's a conversation that we always have with artist managers, business managers. I would always say, by doing nothing, you're equally taking the risk from the currency perspective. So you're almost hedging on both sides of it. So yeah, I think that in terms of it's a conversation that we have over and over again. Pre-COVID, we did typically a lot more kind of hedging strategies, forward contracts for artists, because there was probably a lot more certainty in terms of touring. And that confidence is starting to come back now, and artists and managers are starting to look at things like that again. So yeah, those are mechanisms to at least try and protect that budget where you can.